Okay, guys, welcome to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hainer, sponsored by the Dunk Camp. Learn from the best dunkers in the world. Utah in late June. Info at www.thedunkcamp. Sign our guests. We got Terry Hughes and Iren Rainey, the coach and GM of Florida TNT. Good evening, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Great.
Doing exceptionally well. How about yourself?
Yeah, we're doing fantastic tonight. First off, appreciate you guys both taking some time and talking to us tonight on Zoom to TBT. Obviously, Florida TNT, a lot of buzz in the TBT circles right now with the roster you guys are putting together. So looking forward to learning a little more about that. So before we get into the players and 2020 outlook, I just want to get to know a little bit about how Florida TNT came to be. I know, Terry, you were the GM for DRC in 2018 and kind of splintered off.
Mm-hmm.
Formed Florida TNT in 2019. So tell me how you got involved with TNT and where you are today.
Well, we started trying to get into the TBT probably the second year of its existence. We didn't get in the first year that we tried. The next year we associated loosely with Pedro's posse, where some of our guys got together and we played. And then the next year was when we actually started the relationship with DRC. That didn't work out. So we decided to go on our own. And here we are today, 2 years later. And we're looking to make some big, big noise and win this thing.
Yeah, I mean, you guys got the roster to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at this. I know you guys have some incredibly talented players coming. I'm reading this roster. I mean, Blakely played China now, 2 years in the NBA. Akun Purcell in the G League now. Boynton in China. Gray in France Pro A. I mean, you've got college all-pros. You got McGee with unlimited range playing in Spain. You have a roster built to run people out of the gym. Coach Rainey, how forward are you looking forward to getting these guys on the floor? How do you see them working together?
Honestly, first and foremost, it's just been a blessing for me to even be a part of this. Terry brought me in last year, relatively late, and I'm just like beyond excited and beyond privileged to be on board for this upcoming TBT season. And shout out to the TBT for doing such a phenomenal job with the tournament. It's probably the best tournament I've ever seen personally. But yeah, as far as our roster is concerned, as I stated early on before we actually started recording, it has not been easy to put a group of guys together who are so talented and who are actually playing at a high level and who have played at a high level. It's been strategically arduous, for us to make this thing happen. But one of our other coaches who actually couldn't be here tonight, as well as Terry and myself, have spent a lot of time, effort, and energy talking, strategizing, and coming up with a plan of action so that we can go out there and not only compete, but go out there and dominate. And, a lot of people don't understand, how difficult it is to build teams. Everybody wants the star guys, right? But when it comes to building teams, you got to get a group of guys who understand the game, who are highly skilled, and also guys who are willing to sacrifice and play a role in an overall effort for us to win the tournament as a nucleus, as a team. So super excited about, the opportunity to be able to compete with such a talented group of guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, the team you're building, obviously, the names speak for it, but I think one of the good points you brought up was about the chemistry and be willing to play together. And I saw some of the names brought back some bad memories of these guys scorching the charge. Rob Gray, 20-plus games a couple of times. Purcell, 28. Blakeney averages like 30 against the charge. So I was reading these names. It was frightening, but in a good way, because I'm excited to see your team come together. So Terry, for you, obviously you're bringing back your core. One thing I did notice was you guys didn't shoot too well from behind the arc last season, a little less than 30%. So you bring in McGee, Blakeney, and Boynton to fix that. So tell me about your recruiting strategy and what were the gaps from last year when you lost behind that you needed to fill this year?
Well, our strategy was to make sure that we had guys who understood how to close out a game. Everybody wants to be the man, but when it comes time to be the man, everybody can't be the man. So we wanted guys who've been there, who've done that, and that we feel in our team concept that we're trying to build will make the difference. You know, last year when we were playing down the stretch, things became tighter and tighter and tighter. And it just became apparent that we just didn't have the right guys in the right places. With the help of Iren this year, I believe that we can make sure those guys are in the right place. And we have picked the right guys over the course of this last year.
That's a great thing. I mean, really roster style. One of the great challenges of this tournament is trying to build a comprehensive roster of some disparate parts. And it's always interesting to see how people do the rosters. And with such a loaded roster, there's only one ball with all these guys who can score. So I guess my question for especially for Coach Rainey is, like, how do you guys see this team working together offensively? What kind of system do you want to run? How do you, I mean, you got like 6 thoroughbreds. Like, how are you going to balance everybody's need to eat with only one ball, that level of talent you're bringing to bear?
I don't want to really talk too much about what we're going to run. I don't want teams to be able to rev up for us and prepare for us. But what I will say is, the job that will be Ricardo, myself, as well as our other coach, once again, who couldn't make it this evening, as well as our GM Terry, is making sure that we set the standard, in our first practice. One thing we've done a pretty good job of up to now is really building relationships with a lot of our guys. Luckily for me, quite a few of them actually work out with me in the off season. I have a company where I, do player development consulting for about 30 guys playing at the NBA level. And, some of the guys on our team actually work out with me. So they kind of understand the expectations going into this TBT season. But making sure we start, practice off the right way, helping people understand roles, making sure everybody on our team sees themselves as an asset, sees themselves as valuable. And, the most important thing is just putting guys in spots to be successful, and helping them understand that, from a team building standpoint, from a nuclear standpoint, from an overall desire to win standpoint, it's imperative that we have guys that, understand their role and are willing to sacrifice. Not necessarily take a back seat, but, just sacrifice, for the success of this overall team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I do want to have a follow-up with Coach Rainey. You talked about you have the luxury of working with some of the guys currently in the offseason as part of, what you do outside of TBT.
Mm-hmm.
This year, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously there could be some very limited gym time and some limited preparation time. So, aside from working with them, one-on-one in your development portion, how are you going to get a team ready in a short amount of time to be prepared for TBT this year?
That's a great question. What we are is hopeful, just like I know many of us are, in America in general. I've actually just gotten some great news about sports in the Florida area being considered an essential. So luckily, I have some access to a couple of gyms, and right now what we're planning for is to make sure our guys get some extra work in, before we actually start practicing, just to get them prepared mentally as well as physically to be out on the basketball court and compete at such a high level. But it has been extremely difficult up to this point to get some work in just based on this COVID-19. But as stated, I'm extremely optimistic that, the situation will, take care of itself over the next few weeks.
That's a fair question. It's always one of the challenges of TBT is obviously the logistics of trying to get your teams on your own dime to these locations. So
Absolutely,
it's just augmented and made more of a problem with COVID. So this is a sort of follow-up for both of you. Is one thing a lot of fans find fascinating about TBT is that not only does it exist between the NBA and some of these other tournaments as such a high-level basketball summer event, but like, how does one get a team to these locations? Like, how logistically is it usually challenging, and how has that been more challenging this year? Hotels, travel, like, how are you guys anticipating handling all these things?
Well,
this year we're set to play in the Florida region, which will be in Winter Haven, Florida. And 90% of our guys live within driving distance of where our first regional will be. I think there's maybe 2 guys that have to come from a little bit of a distance, but they will be here and they'll be staying here in the area for the summer. So we will all be here relatively close for the next 3-4 months. So this year is sort of a blessing. We don't have to worry about getting hotels for guys, how we're going to travel, whether we're going to go planes, vans, things like that. So like I say, this year kind of worked out for us. So we don't have to worry about hopping on a plane to try to get to DC.
All right, let's talk about the region a little bit. So obviously it's going to be great playing at home right there in Florida. You got some local teams. Tampa 2020 is going to be there. I know Team Spates is going to be a nice squad as well. Armored Athlete, of course, would be another one of the top teams there. How far out do you start looking at some of these other teams? And I know you have one roster spot that you're looking to possibly fill for practice. How far out do you start looking at the other teams and figuring out if you have the right matchups to move on to the round of 8?
Well, I'll talk about the teams, and I'll let Iren talk about the roster spot. Every team that we feel could possibly make it this way, I'm already looking at them. I'm already scouting them, seeing who they've had in the past. I'm checking their roster to see who they may have added in the future, and then scout those guys also. So as far as the scouting part of it goes, I think we will definitely be prepared for that well ahead of time. Now, as far as the other players, Iren?
As far as filling the roster spot, honestly, we love, the roster that we're working with right now. We do have one roster spot available, but it's got to be somebody special. It's got to be somebody that believes in what we're doing as a team. It's got to be somebody that doesn't feel like, he's bigger than the team, is willing to buy into, the concepts and the philosophy that we're planning on going out with. As of now, honestly, we got probably 1 or 2 guys in mind. And if it, boils down to it and we don't get, one of those 2 guys, we'll probably just end up going with the guys that we already have currently.
Makes sense.
And so as a follow-up to the region, so obviously, the way it looks right now, you guys look like the clear number 1 on paper, but I did want to bring up last year's bracketology that me and Hainer did last year. I don't know if you followed that last year, but the man covering his eyes right now, Hainer, he put you as an 8 seed last year.
He put us where?
He put you as an 8 seed, and I put you as a 4, so I was right.
Yeah, well, you look like the smarter guy.
No arguments there. No.
we take our whippings, actually. We take our whippings, when we make them wrong. It's funny. It actually talks to how this generally works as a process, because like Charge and I are pretty big fans of basketball, all kinds, and it's just hard to follow these teams. There's so many things that American fans don't understand about European pros. I mean, looking at your roster, you got guys who are playing all over the place, high leagues, Spain, France, the G League, Netherlands, Australia. So a lot of fans in America always have trouble following. Great basketball's played everywhere. But top of the things, like your team obviously has a talented matchup with anybody. What do you think would be a fair seed now for you guys, having the respect already from last year's tight win or tight game against Hines, the first room? Like, what kind of seed do you guys think you guys would be fair at?
1.
Good bet.
Yeah. Well, and I feel also that we should be a 1 seed, but it really doesn't matter when it comes down to seeds, because in reality, what does a seed get you? You're going to play a game just as the number 8 seed will play a game, and if you win, you'll move on. If you lose, you go home. So that seed is really, I don't really put much stock into it. You know, I remember hearing last year how somebody had us as a number 8 seed, and I'm just like, okay, you know, whatever. You know, we knew what we had, you know, and we, just like this year, you know, we know what we have, you know, and you know, if somebody decides they want to take a chance and come down and play us, you know, let it be.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because I was there watching the DRC team, which you guys are aligned with in 2018. And as you can see from the sign behind me, I'm a very big Memphis fan. So I was courtside
Yes.
to watch Darius knock out his former team. And that was a big thing to cry a little bit that afternoon.
Yes, that was a good day.
Hey, before we head to the closing, just a question for Coach Rainey, a little bit on a personal issue. I kind of read some background on you. It seems like you're doing some amazing things, not only from your NBA, you know, player development, but working with the youth and kind of some of the motivational speaking you're doing. So did you want to just kind of talk a little bit about that and, you know, some of the things you're working on from a personal side?
Oh, absolutely. You know, one of the main things for me, you know, as it pertains to basketball, I simply use it as a conduit to really reach the masses of people. There are so many kids and families who, you know, love the game of basketball. And basically what I've done is give them a platform to really learn how to play a game that they love while really working on empowering them with some overall life skills. I'm not sure if you all know, but right now we have probably the highest rate of suicide ever in America amongst, you know, elementary school kids all the way up through teenagers. And a lot of it's because they just don't, you know, have the social skills, or they don't know how to deal with, you know, adversity. They haven't, you know, had the right types of role models around them to help them understand how imperative it is to become leaders. And basically what I've done is started, you know, this foundation, Rainey Youth Empowerment Foundation, to obviously allow kids to compete within the game of basketball at a high level. But most importantly, really work on enhancing and empowering their mindset, their belief system, their overall internal dialogue and philosophy about themselves. I'm a firm believer that however we see ourselves as humans is usually how everyone else will treat us. And one of the toughest things for us to do as humans is really face ourselves. So once again, the Rainey Youth Empowerment Foundation is really based on and predicated on maximizing kids' skill set on the basketball court, but most importantly, helping them evolve into their full human potential.
That's a really inspiring story, man. And I'm glad people are looking out for the youth, because someone really has to. And that sounds like a really natural place to end it. So, Charge, I wanted to thank you guys for coming on tonight. Coach Rainey, Terry Hughes, GM and coach of the Florida TBT or TNT. Screwing that over that a little bit. And we'll have you back on a little bit later, talk a little bit more, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you for your time, guys. We'll take care, all right?
Appreciate
All
you
right,
guys.
take care.